Return, O Virgin Daughter of Israel, to these your highways by which you went. Welcome to Reunion Roadmap, a place to discover the people and communities along the highway of restoration for Israel's House of Joseph. Reunion Roadmap is a B'nai Yosef North America production. Be our guest for the next hour as we meet the people of the emerging House of Joseph here in North America. This is Stefani Pappas with B'nai Yosef North America, and with me is Al McCarn, our Executive Director, and we are going to the land down under to interview Margot Crossing in part 2 of this amazing story that she's beginning to unfold about her experience in China.
Well, there's China, India, Kyrgyzstan.
Yes, all over.
This is, as you said, Stefani, a second part of our 3-part interview with Margot Crossing. She's going to talk about tracing the lost tribes, specifically connections that her friends from Mizoram had in Kyrgyzstan when they were they were there. You're going to hear, how do these people know what connection they have with the lost tribes of Israel? Well, you're going to hear some evidence of that. Last time, she was telling us about the divine appointment she had that brought her and many others to Chengdu, China. This time, we're in Kyrgyzstan. And if all the listeners are wondering where in the world is Kyrgyzstan, it's one of the 6 Central Asian republics that were former Soviet socialist republics, part of the Soviet Union. But just because the political name changes and the regime changes, the people don't change. They still know who they are. And that's what you're going to hear in this case. Listen closely at the first part of the interview. She talks about the Epic of Manas. Manas as in Menashe. And Margot also talks about the papers she has written, and you can download those from our website. They are on the link to these 3 podcasts, which have her interview. They are pretty stirring, encouraging papers, and she's done her homework, both by research and actually being there on the ground in these countries with these people, hearing their stories and understanding their identity as they relate it to her. So without further ado, let's go on to Woy Woy, Australia, and continue our conversation with Margot Crossing.
Okay, my blog is Lost Tribes Found blog at wordpress.com. I also have a Rumble channel now, which has videos from a conference back in, I think it was 2015. And so that's Lost Tribes Found on Rumble. My academic work, I've got a couple of papers, academia.org, and just put Margot with a T Crossing in. You'll find I've got 2 papers. There's 3 on the thing, but one of them's just been posted twice because I'm technically illiterate, so they just got uploaded twice. And I can't seem to take one of them down because there's too many comments on it, on both of them. But the third one is a talk that I did in Kyrgyzstan in 2019. So it's a scientific symposium. I'm pretty sure I was the only non-academic speaking at the symposium. There was professors from all over Eastern Europe, all through Tajikistan, Central Asia, into there. And my topic was the peoples of the Lost Book, connecting Northeast India to Central Asia, to Central Asian migration through oral history, because the topic of the scientific symposium was oral history, myth and legend. So, and that's because the people in Kyrgyzstan have an epic, I guess, like is it Homer's epic, the Epic of Gilead or something? But their epic is called the Epic of Manas, and so it takes teams of chanters. I think 7 days, 24 hours for the 7 days to get through this epic. It's epic, and it's and it has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of references to biblical Israel in it. And so when And I took 3 Mizos from Northeast India to this scientific symposium with it, because it also had a cultural event, and they were part of the cultural event. And while we were being interviewed for a documentary, the cameraman and the art director were having a discussion with each other about where the camera was going to go, the lighting, the curtains in the unit that we were in, and blah blah blah. And one of them said, "Doctor," which is a Kyrgyz phrase which means "stop fussing." Well, the 3 Mizos stood up because they went, "Oh my goodness, this is a Mizo phrase that means stop fussing."
That's one of the amazing things with the linguistic connections. Now, 20 years ago, when I first became aware of my own Hebraic identity, can't trace it through DNA or anything else, but I'm reading Yair Davidi, who's much of his research has been on where the tribes went to the west. Well,
that's correct.
That's where my people went.
Yep.
I know,
mine.
And yours too. Yes.
Yeah.
So I know the Scots and the Irish and the English and the Welsh. That's us. They had roots coming by multiple directions. And tracing it, Davidi, this opened my eyes. Tracing this by linguistic elements and place names and cultural similarities. Well, that helped me understand the Western migrations. You're doing the same thing with the Eastern migrations. Well, so many things fascinate me, Margot, but the conference in Chengdu, in the middle of nowhere in Western China, and they're gathered to talk about the lost tribes in China. My first question is, how could the government of China permit this to happen?
Well, it wasn't a big conference. They just hired a small conference hall in a hotel, and that was how it was happening. And the people attending were word of mouth, which is why the question at the end of the first day was, "How did you get here? How did you know about it?" Because it wasn't advertised, of course. And different cities in China have different levels of authoritarianism as well. For example, when I was in Xi'an, because I went to Xi'an, and people will know that that's the place of the Terror Corridor warriors. Okay, and it's a place on, like, when you're coming across the Silk Road, Xi'an's one of those places that you end up, and so it was the capital at some stage. And so when I was there, I was picked up by a Christian called Noah. We were very openly talking Christian stuff all over the place. It was just like, nobody, he didn't care, none of the authorities in Jet. But then I got on the train and I went to Lanzhou, which is further west, and I was picked up by the sister and the wife of a pastor early in the morning from the train, taken to a hotel room where the pastor turned up later in the day and talked to us in the hotel room and then left, so that nobody knew he'd come to see us. So he had to be a lot more careful in that city than, just the city that I'd been in literally the day before. So it's, it's often the local authorities that are, expanding, the different laws. I mean, I'm sure there's a central government law for whatever, but how it's outworked, I think, is different from province to province. So anyway, that's what we was able to do in Chengdu. So yeah.
And of course, my question is not just because of the anti-Christian policies of the Chinese Communist Party, but also the anti-minority policies with one China, and there's the persecution and the cultural oppression of anyone who's not of the majority.
And it's become, because my friends I said that I had friends that came and translated. So her husband is he's actually got a Jewish background. So he's a Christian from Australia. So it's part Scottish, part Jewish. So and she was brought up in China inside the Chinese communist regime before coming to us. So they're both believers, and and have been doing. But they have noticed in the last was pre-COVID, I think. They noticed the harshness of the young people that are in charge now, like the older people, that they seem to get a pass from. They'd actually started a drug rehab thing over there, and so the senior government leaders were very were friendly to them because of the work that they were doing, and it was really helping China to get people off, the young people off drugs. Well, the younger generation that's come up now is very, very anti-Western. And my friend he said the last time he was over there, it was very difficult. And so they've been going there for decades. And so some of the stuff that was happening now is, like, I have no intention of going to China anytime soon either. But, between the Olympic Games in 2008, I think it was, and about 2016, there just seemed to be a period of that things were lax, and you could go there and and not, well, it seems like you weren't being bothered that much, and so
Yes.
that's the answer to that question. Yeah,
well, it does, but it does get to some of the history that you have mentioned, and I'd like to address this one. The lost books. And there's this story from 2,000 years ago. I wouldn't know which dynasty it was in China, but the Emperor Qin Shi Huang, who burned the book. How does that relate to these stories of the lost tribes and the cultural memory? Because you relate that in your paper that you presented in Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan. But could you just relate that? Because there's something interesting that resonated with me.
So I lived in Thailand amongst the Karen for a while, and the Karen have a story that. So I don't know if you realise that in the early 1800s, missionaries pretty sure from the United States went there, probably Baptist. There was Dr. and Mrs. Mason. They were the ones in northern Myanmar. So because there was no borders back then, it was sort of all East India, that sort of region. But they'd gone up from Rangdu up the rivers to visit these the Karen, okay, and so they related back to the missionary organizations that they thought they'd found an Israelite group there. Like they literally talk about that. There's probably a quote somewhere. I can send you the quote if you need to, or people can go on my blog. They'll find the quote. It'll be on one of my blogs. But the reason that the Karen became Christian in numbers up to 95%. So, this was this huge, I don't know if you want to call it a revival, but village after village after village after village of Karen, finding, Jesus Christ, as they would have been taught, and the reason is because they had a prophecy that they had lost their book, and that a younger white brother would turn up with the book. Okay. And so when these white people turned up with the Bible, and the stories were similar, and the culture of the book was similar, they went, this is our lost book. Okay. And so this is how their lost book story goes. Okay. They had a golden book and they neglected it. So while they were burning the fields off, trying to get ready for the paddy fields and whatever, because they burn off, slash and burn, that they left the book on a log, a smouldering log, and it got burnt. Okay. Now they managed to save some of it. So they had some pages, some pieces of this book. And then the story went, and then they neglected it further, and it fell through the bamboo floors of their huts, and then the chickens and pigs ate it. And so that's their story. Now, the interesting thing about the Karen is they have a running calendar, and they literally date themselves to the year 749 BC. And they come from a land called Tibi-Kobe, which some people think is the land of Tibet and the Gobi Desert. Okay, so that would place them up in that western region of China. But it also asks the question, is the book the Torah? And have they dated themselves from the first captivity that the Assyrians took the northern, those 2.5 tribes into captivity on? Because that's supposed to be, what is it, 739 BC, not 749 BC. So it's the year after the first captivity, which we say is 740 BC. Sorry about getting the dates wrong. But it's literally the year after. So they they go into captivity, then they start counting the years from then. And so somehow they get through Central Asia, they get through Western China, and then they end up in northern Myanmar, and with this story that they lost their golden book. Okay, so that's their story. Now, there's a Christian anthropologist called Don Richardson, and it's a book that you can get readily. It's called Eternity in Their Hearts. Now, if you read chapter 2, he documents 10, and this is just coincidence that it's 10, but he documents 10 hill tribe people in that region, northeast India, northern Myanmar, and western Thailand, that all have similar traits in that they had a book that got lost, they have a name for a one true creator God, and and then there's just various myths and stuff that go around that. So the Mizos, which is where I've been living on and off, and now I have 2 Mizo grandchildren, so this is how closely related I am to this tribe. Their story is they were building a great wall, a big wall. No, I'm not going to call it a great wall. They were building a big wall. That's their words. And then they escaped through the big wall. There was a hole in the big wall, and some of them escaped, some of them didn't. After that, they lived in caves, and so they call themselves the Chinlung, which translates the cave dwellers. And so they know they came from China somehow. So they're now in India, but northeast India, but they don't think that's where they came from. They think they came from China. And they have also a story that a dog ate their book. So they've now got an animal eating their book as well. So they lost their book and an animal ate their book. Now, Pizai Tungchuni, who's the researcher, my friend, she says that to call somebody a dog in Mizoram is a derogatory term. And so she thought that it was this emperor, what is it, Qing Shi Huang. And so that's well documented that he actually took all the books in China except for, I think, his philosophy and agriculture, and burnt all of them. He burnt all the books. It wasn't just the Torah. He burnt all the books. And so that was 213 BC. So here you've got all these people down in, southwestern China, bleeding into Myanmar, all with a lost book story. Now, the interesting thing about that is because the people in the Chiang in the Min Valley, when Reverend Torrance was following one of their ancient rituals, which he could see, which was a Day of Atonement-like ritual. So he'd been invited in as a guest into this ritual, and the priest is actually showing him what you would do in this ritual. And so he realized it's a Day of Atonement like ritual. And so he reads, because by this stage he's obviously understanding their language. He reads the 16th chapter of Leviticus to this priest. And the priest realizes, and this is what he jumps up and he exclaims, "These are our lost scriptures." So they had a lost book as well, even though they hadn't talked about it. So when the Torah was presented to them, the 16th chapter of Leviticus, which is about the Day of Atonement, he immediately recognized that was why they were keeping these rituals alive. Mm. And then Torrance says, because this is being related by his son, who became a famous bishop, and a famous theologian, And so then his son relates, because he was a small boy, he was there at the time. He says, and then my father turned to the first chapter of the book of John and read about the Lamb of God who came to take away the sin of the world. And then he said, this priest and his entire family were believed and baptized. These are biblical stories,
Yes.
But here was this people group, and a priestly class's people group were keeping alive these rituals because one day it was going to be important. And then,
Yes.
Yeah.
And just to mention, because many of our audience is North American, and we're aware over here of the Native American tribes with similar stories, similar linguistic patterns and cultural traits. In fact, I know one story of a Cherokee man who was in Jerusalem, and the Jews there he was talking to, when he pronounced the name of God in their language, they were amazed because that's the name they don't pronounce. Here's Solomon Lopez singing Create in Me. You can hear more of Solomon's music at Hebraism.org.
Create in me a clean heart, O Elohim, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Create in me a clean heart, O Elohim, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Let me hear of your joy and gladness. Please don't go. Wash me, oh yeah, whiter than the snow. Let my tongue sing aloud of your righteousness, O Elohim, of my deliverance, of my deliverance. Let me hear of your joy and gladness. Please don't go. Wash me, oh yeah, whiter than the snow. Show me your favor. Oh, show
Shalom, folks. Welcome to the Midrash portion of today's Reunion Roadmap. Barry Phillips here in Virginia, and along with me is my co-host, David Jones in Florida. David, I trust that you're well today.
Shalom, brother. Bright and sunny in Florida.
All right. This week, as the time of this recording, there is an individual that is introduced to us, seemingly, David, out of nowhere. And when these characters just suddenly pop up in Scripture, not just in the Torah, but, we're introduced to Eliyahu, to Elijah, just boom. Where did he come from? Well, we need to learn to pay attention because Yah introduces people to us that are significant, they're important, even if they're for a page or two. Boom, pay attention to who they are. This week, we are introduced to one by the name of Bezalel. This is in Exodus or Shemot chapter 31. He is the key artisan and craftsman who will produce much of the design. He follows the blueprint and the design of the tabernacle and brings it from theory to reality. He is filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, and his name, as is often the case, David, is significant to us. The first letter, the bet, as we would translate it, a B, it gives the idea of in. The last section there, L, in L, in the middle is the crux of his name, Sel. It means shadow, in the shadow of El or Elohim. David, when I think about the shadow, the first thing that comes to me is what many of us maybe will start our day with. We'll go to Psalms chapter 91 and verse 1, he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High, who abides under the cell, the shadow of the Almighty. He is saying of Yahweh, my refuge and my stronghold, my Elohim in whom I trust. So the shadow of El, it's a good place to be. I think of shadow as maybe shade. I have some shade trees in my yard. In the heat of the summer, the sun likes to come down over the house, and in the evening, it's setting, shining right on the front of the house, and the whole front of the house just wilts. A lot of humidity. I don't have to tell you Floridians anything about that, but a lot of humidity, a lot of bright sunshine. But there is a large beech tree over in the left-hand corner of my yard. If you can get underneath there, it's amazing how much the temperature drops, how much cooler it is in the shade. Protection, comfort. But you and I both know that shade or shadows are fleeting. They don't last. David, is it possible that we get convenient and comfortable in a good spot, maybe before him, before the Father, only to find that the shadow moves? I know that, where it says in him there's no shadow of turning. There is, however, a sense that you can't get stagnant in him. You need that comfort place. You need that encouraging place in him. But it's not just to sit in the shade and do nothing, is it?
What a great setup, Barry. That's awesome.
You're welcome, brother.
That is awesome. I like how you're putting this, because the emphasis of this is not necessarily on the tabernacle, but yet it is, because Bezalel in the shadow or in the shade of Elohim, Yahweh. What the tabernacle was to represent is abiding and dwelling in his shadow. What does a tent do? A tent shelters you, it shades you, it protects you, it does that. Well, The tabernacle was supposed to be a model and a picture of what we are supposed to be with Yahweh. And here's the beauty of it. Yahweh says he will shade you and protect you as much he did like the cloud in the wilderness. But yet every so often, what would happen to that tent and the cloud and the fire? They moved. So when it moved, what's going to happen here? Well, either you go where you're shaded, like the cloud gives the shade. Either you go where you're shaded, or you're going to burn up in the sun. It's your choice. Do you have to go? No. But it benefits you if you do, because the shade is moving. The tent that is supposed to provide shelter and shade and that the presence of Yahweh is moving. And therefore, we as a living tabernacle move. And I find it amazing when we're talking about this. Bezalel, he wasn't the only one to build the Mishkan, but yet we see three main people involved in it. And it's not Moses and Aaron. It's Bezalel. And then Yahweh makes a declaration, I have filled him with the Spirit of God, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. And then, by the way, I'm going to give you Oholiab. So here it is, Yahweh says, I'm calling out and anointing Bezalel because I have filled him with me. And so he will give him the instruction, and as Moshe received it, he will give him the instruction, and Oholiab will help him oversee. Whether or not you can go into the Midrash they believe that he was a young teenager, that Bezalel was a young teenager at this time, and he was made foreman over this, and you can imagine what kind of ripples that would cause. But here it is. Yahweh chose someone and put his presence in him.
Yeah.
And because his spirit was in him, it was, what are you building the tent for? For his presence. And the idea is it's to show us how his presence is to dwell in us. Because the tabernacle is supposed to be a model to show us ourselves. And so all of this together, and it's all a picture of this connection to Yahweh, who is in the heavens, but he desires to dwell with us here on earth, inside of us. And that's a picture of Yeshua, what Yeshua came to do. And again, we're still on the theme of dwelling in his shadow. We're dwelling with him, because here we are dwelling, it's Yeshua here with us, dwelling within us. Now we have literally on earth as it is in heaven, because he is there in both. And even the instruction, which I'll bring this out really quick, you can break it down. You said, names mean things, right? Well, yeah. In the scripture, when it talks about names and orders of names, sometimes it's a list of names, and sometimes it's pointing at something a little more. When he talks about, I've singled out Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Yehuda, and his assistant, Oholiab, the son of Ahisamach, from the tribe of Dan. If you take the meanings of their names, it's another picture showing us of Yeshua and the tent working for us to dwell with him in a place of righteousness. It says, in the shadow of God is the son of fire and light, who is in white linen. He is the praise of God, as his assistant, or working with him, the tent of his father, who is the brother or support, who will judge and rule. And so all of this is a picture of Yeshua dwelling in us, who we are supposed to be the tent, and we are to help support the kingdom and to rule in the kingdom, because he is the judge and he will rule.
David, as you read those names, I'm just thinking that Bezalel, that lineage speaks of Yeshua, Mashiach ben Yosef. The second line of lineage speaks of Yeshua, Mashiach ben David. Yeshua came as fire. He came as light. He came into the world as a light, and to bring praise to the Father. And then he is returning as the one who will judge. So that's interesting there. The middle part of Bezalel's name, Sel, is comprised of two Hebrew letters, a Sadi and a Lamed. In their paleo form, and it's an interesting way of looking at it. It's not to create doctrine. It's not to, be overdone, but it's interesting. It's an interesting way of looking at it. Asadi is the idea of to catch, desire, or need. And lamed can mean a lot of different things, but it is authority. It's the shepherd's staff, or with a crook in it, it's authority and teaching. So the shadow might be seen then as a place where one desires teaching, where it's a yeshiva place where we want to step in the shade of and learn and grow. Out of that, in that place, then according to what we see about him, he is filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, and he emerges from that with a sense of creativity, a sense of art, craftsmanship, being an artisan. If we want to produce something, if we want to create something, we see a hole and we want to fill it, a niche, and we want to get in there and make something happen. We see a need and we're praying, Father, how do I fit the need? How do I respond to the need? Get in his shadow, get in his presence, not to hide, not to be comfortable, not to be hidden. Sometimes we want to stand in the shadows and think nobody can see me, therefore I'm not responsible or accountable. No, right. His shadow is a place where he wants to teach us, instruct us, so that we emerge from that and are ready to do something.
Okay, I'm going to equate this to sitting at his feet. We see pictures in the scripture of people coming and sitting at Yeshua's feet, to be taught of him. We see a picture of Israel at Sinai sitting at his feet.
Yeah.
The idea here is when we come to him to sit at his feet, it's not just to hear what he says, it's to have the words of life engraved on our hearts. So, and what is the point and the purpose of that? So that we become more like him. So that we become more like what he is engrafting into us, so that we become more like what he is instructing us. As we follow him, we become more like him. And that I find extremely interesting, because that was kind of what was happening in the very, very, very beginning of everything. Because when Yahweh created Adam in Bereshit, Genesis 1:27, says God created humankind in his image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. Now, where it says he created humankind, Adam, in his image, that word image is tzalim, where we get the word, the root is tzel. Shadow. Tzalim means it means to shade something, or can also be translated as a phantom, meaning I thought I saw something. What was that? Wait a minute. I thought I caught a glimpse of Yahweh there. What's going on? We are to be a representation of him, because it is him dwelling in us. And so a shadow is cast from a genuine article. A shadow is cast from something else. A shadow cannot do anything but be what it is. Well, Yahweh casts himself and his word to us. And so what do we do with that?
So we're walking in his shadow. That is, his shadow is overshadowing us. In that shadow, again, the idea of getting in his shadow is not to go and stand still. His shadow's on the move. He's working. He's doing. He's seeing things take place. That means we need to move as the shadow moves. A lot of challenge in what we're hearing today, David. So if you got you see a need and you think somebody needs to do something about that, you've been elected. Congratulations. How can we help you?
Hey, guys, consider Peter's shadow.
Oh, I didn't even think about that, David. Oh, well, we don't have time to talk about it now. Take us out here, David.
All right, guys. We hope this is challenge you, encourage you, and good stuff. We love your feedback. So if you can, get back to us and let us know what your thoughts are and other things you may want to hear. Contact us at reunionroadmap@bneiyosefna.com. Until next time, guys. Shalom.
Shalom.
Once again, we hear Ruth Banks with her song, I Need You. To find more of her music, visit her website at I Am Ruth. That's IAMRUT, IamRoot.com.
I've been lost before, searched around for any open doors. But what happens when I cannot see? I'm lost, wandering around aimlessly. I need you. The way, the life, the truth, Yeshua. I need you. The way, the life, the truth, Yeshua. I'm not lost anymore. You paved the way, you said, I am the door. No one can come before the Father without me. I'm the only way to the King. I need you. The way, the life, the truth, Yeshua. I need you. The way, the life, the truth, Yeshua. I need you to cover me. I need you to cover me. As I walk to you, I know you'll intercede. You pave the way so I can see. You are my way to the King of Kings. I need you. I need you to cover me. The way, the life, there's a road to you that you will never see. I need you. You pave the way, the way, the life, the truth, to the King of Kings. I need you. I need you to cover me. As I walk to you, I know that you will never see. You pave the way so I can see. You are the only way to the King of Kings. I need you to cover me. As I walk to you, I know that you will never see. You pave the way so I could see. You are the only way to the King of Kings. 'cause I wanna sing out to the other true no see. You pay your way, so could see. You are the only way to the King of Kings, King of Kings.
Well, we've had two of our favorite musicians as our guests, Ruth Banks, who we just heard with her song I Need You, and then Solomon Lopez with Create in Me. Now, this midrash that Barry and David shared with us, they call In the Shadow. Just at the very end, I mean, they're talking about Bezalel and Aholiab and constructing the Mishkan, the tabernacle, and how the Spirit of the living God is put into them. The link that they draw with that and the phrase in the shadow, and how that is also an image that we see from Psalm 91. But that very last bit where Barry just throws out there, oh yes, in the shadow of Peter, referring to Acts, the people who just wanted to have the apostles' shadows fall on them. Our elders have just traced a line from the building of the tabernacle and him pouring out his Spirit in the wilderness, all the way down to the apostles and even down to our day. But it really does speak to our identity, and that goes back to what Margot Crossing is sharing with us. There are peoples around the world who are beginning to awaken to the fullness of their identity.
Yes.
The gifts and the callings of our Elohim are without repentance. They don't get revoked, which is why, as she was telling about the people in Kyrgyzstan and the people in Mizoram and others who know they are part of the tribe of Menashe and the other lost tribes. Well, if we want to deny their claims and just deny the evidence, maybe we need to take that up with our Father, whose gifts and callings are irrevocable.
Yes.
Like the gifts and callings on the Jewish people, who are we to say they no longer have a place in the kingdom when the king himself has said, well, yes, they do.
Yes.
I think we're going to have to leave it at that because we have run out of time again for this show. So if you have enjoyed this edition of Reunion Roadmap, please visit our website, BneiYosefNA.com, BneiYosefNA.com. We have a lot of resources there, which we hope you will find interesting. And if you are so moved, we have a donate button and would appreciate if you would partner with us so we can continue to bless others through these shows. So that's it for this week. On behalf of Zephaniah Pappas, Barry Phillips, and David Jones, this is Al McCarn. Shavua Tov.
Thank you for joining us on the Reunion Roadmap, a production of B'nai Yosef North America. Please come back next week for another visit with the people of the emerging house of Joseph here in North America.